Morning boys and girls, you join me in the summer of 2025 at the vast motorcycle emporium of Bridge Motorcycles in Exeter. Back in the summer of 2023, I released a couple of videos on what was then my new Triumph Speedmaster. First was a 1-year evaluation at 8,000 miles, the second was a 1-year 1-month evaluation a couple of thousand miles later. I did that because I'd had so many problems. Reviewing those scripts now, I found that on July the 17th, 2023, I'd submitted the bike for a warranty claim which was number 7. This meant that my brand new Triumph Speedmaster had spent 4 whole months out of the 13 I'd owned it in dealerships having warranty work or repairs done. The last being the most significant as it required an engine rebuild from the barrels up. Today, in June 2025, my beautiful Speedmaster is here for its 3-year service, now at 30,000 miles. During the winter, I had a big 20,000 mile service done, but that turned out to be very late. So this video will be an overall evaluation of the bike over the last 18 months with the details of the new warranty claim and an update regarding the minor customisations that I've changed during the time. I'll also mention some of the future customisations that I'm desperate to do. If you've seen my previous Triumph videos, you'll remember that I purchased this Speedmaster for £12,500 in June 2022 from Two Wheels in Edinburgh, that's Edinburgh Triumph. Following the initial 500 mile service, I've had no end of trouble, much of which should have been avoided but for the dreadful service I had from Dealer X. You'll have to watch the videos to believe it. In the 1-year 1-month video, I noted that the bike was burning oil at a rate of 3.7 litres in 5,000 miles. This was the basis of warranty claim number 7 and was traced to a piston ring not being seated properly. Actually, I've got no official confirmation of this as there's never been any sort of report offered to explain the various faults, other than a short set of handwritten notes on one repair. In the olden days, I used to have proper jobs. One of those was as an electrical wholesaler. If I sold a product that turned out to be faulty, I could send it back to the manufacturer and get a report on what had failed and usually why. I could then pass this on to the electrician. This is what I'd like for all the problems I've had with my bike, especially the top-end engine rebuild. I'll ask about it later. Who knows? Today, while the bike's in for its 30,000 mile service, I'm also getting the latest warranty work done. These are described as electrical faults, which arose when I noticed that my hazard lights weren't working properly. The right-hand light would flash fine, but the left hand was just dark. The indicators themselves, they were fine, right and left, as they should be. It was just the hazard lights. I wasn't too worried. You don't need hazard lights often, but when you do, you really do. Around the same time, I also noticed that the horn had stopped working. Similar to the hazards, you don't need a horn much, but when you do, you just do. In addition, the right-hand side heated grip had stopped working. Now, in Blighty, it gets pretty cold in winter, and although I don't go out in the cold like I used to, nevertheless, when I do, it's really uncomfortable to have only one heated grip working. In all honesty, I wasn't particularly fussed about it, but I spoke to my brother, Mike, and he said that since it's electrical, it could develop into something much more serious. So I figured, I have the extended warranty, I'll use it. I brought the bike here to Bridge. They spent a couple of hours looking it over while they contacted Triumph. Triumph said it needed new switchgear right and left. Triumph authorised the claim and the parts were ordered. Now Charlie on the service desk wasn't so sure about the heated grips, so I let him talk to Triumph some more, and a few days later Triumph did agree to do the heated grips too, fortunately. The right-hand switchgear is called a switch cube, and it cost £116. The left-hand gear is called controls or clutch controls and retails for £235. The horn itself wasn't actually faulty, but it is rubbish anyway. The sound it makes reminds me of those plastic toy pedal cars we had when we were young kids. They had a small, brightly coloured rubbery button in the centre of the steering wheel, and pressing it gave a silly little tooty tooty sound. It's just embarrassing on a motorcycle, so lots of people change the horn on Bonnevilles. I just got one off Amazon for £10 and we'll see how that works out. While trying to get all the problems resolved with the bike in 2023, I spoke to Carl at Triumph Customer Support many times, and one of the compensation elements I pushed for was a 2-year extended warranty. Obviously, I'm very glad I did that because, on reflection, I don't think I'd have kept the bike if I hadn't got that extended warranty. Earlier, I mentioned that the 20,000 mile service this winter was late, and this was because I didn't get the service done until 26,000 miles. This may seem very lax of me, careless even, but bear with me, there are mitigating circumstances. The bike had its 500 mile service a week or two after I bought it. At 5,000 miles, it had a major service because of the oil burn. The valve shims were changed. But the oil burn continued, which at 10,000 miles required the whole top half of the engine to be rebuilt so new piston rings could be fitted. The service light came on at 15,000 miles, so at 16,000 miles I had another service done. I then assumed that the bike required a service every 10,000 miles and wouldn't require another until 26,000 miles. Oh, how naive could I have been? Now, of course, if I had read the scheduled maintenance table on page 79 of the manual, I would have seen that the 20,000 mile service is a big one. At this point, the valves are checked in addition to all the other items. The manual also stipulates that this is required by mileage or date, whichever comes first. Thus, even though I'd had a full service at 16,000 miles, I still needed another at 20,000. Similarly, I'd assumed that the engine rebuild at 10,000 miles would have constituted a service too, but oh no, how naive could I have been? Apparently, rebuilding the top half of the engine does not require an oil change, which is a fundamental part of the service. Thus, I have no official service recorded between 5 and 15,000 miles. The end result is that the 20,000 mile service details are marked late because it didn't happen until 26,000 miles. The only reasonable conclusion to be drawn, therefore, is that the first 18 months of ownership were, at times, a real nightmare. I actually came perilously close to selling the bike on 2 occasions. Each time the temptation was a Harley Sportster XL, but I resisted. Though that temptation be mighty fierce indeed. I made a video at the time comparing a Sportster to a Speedmaster and concluded that the Speedmaster was, and is, a far superior bike, although the Sportster was actually more fun. Fancy that. But the reasons I went for a Speedmaster are all the same as the reasons I stayed with a Speedmaster. By contrast to the first 18 months, the second 18 months have been hunky-dory. Until now. In 2022, I released a video called Releasing Its Full Potential, or perhaps Bat Out of Hinckley, just because this was my favourite video thumbnail image. This video described the minor customisations I'd done up until that point. Since then though, 1 or 2 of those have changed. First, the video shows the ROX 4-inch handlebar risers I installed, coupled with Motone 1-inch up and over risers. This generated 5 inches of pullback and 1 inch of rise. This arrangement helped a good deal with the comfort, but it was very unstable. I have, therefore, changed the bars and now have the Triumph high bars installed. Triumph recommend their pinned risers with their high bars, but I use the standard risers because they offer a small amount of extra pullback. I have to confess that I really don't like these baths aesthetically, but at my age, comfort is much more important than looking pretty, even if that was physically possible. The very expensive Russell Cycle Products day-long seat is generally excellent, but I'd like to get it reupholstered with another 1/2 inch 10 or 12mm of foam padding. I found that after a couple of hours my backside can start to ache, so more padding would help, though I haven't actually done this yet. Finally, there's the Scott Oiler. Although this is a very good product, I've come to heartily hate it. It actually does a really good job keeping the chain and sprockets lubricated, and it's absolutely essential over a British winter. The problem is that it's so flaming messy. Here in Blighty, we use salt on the roads during the winter months, and this requires the Scott Oiler to pump so much lubricant onto the rear sprocket that it sprays all over the back of the bike. And the lubricant is horrible stuff. It turns black, it goes really hard, and it's sticky. I use it because I lost a chain and sprockets to rust during my very first winter with this bike after just 5,000 miles. The Scott Oiler completely prevents that, doing an otherwise impressive job, but the mess is awful. Some proclaim that reducing the lubricant flow stops this, which it does. But in winter, the flow needs to be maxed out because even a small reduction results in a rusty chain, and that very, very quickly. While we're talking about the final drive malarkey, I made several other related videos, including a short series called Urgent Upgrades I Can't Afford. The most urgent of these, therefore, is the belt drive conversion. This would eliminate the chain and sprockets, making the Scott Oiler redundant. I won't go into all the reasons that I hate chains for final drive, but you can watch the video and you can see the options that were available at the time. I'm also very keen to change the handlebars because I love the stock beach bars so much. Coincidentally, my brother Mike had a Speedmaster test ride a couple of weeks ago and he hated the beach bars. He said it felt like he was pushing a wheelbarrow. But for me, I just love those bars. The problem is, once again, comfort. I need to sit as upright as possible, and using the stock bars means I have to lean forward too much. What I need is about 8 inches of pullback, maybe as much as 200 millimeters, but with no rise at all. If I was on my beautiful Harley Sportster, this would be no problem, as there are near infinite aftermarket options available, and a good number of official Harley-Davidson alternatives too. But it's not like that for Triumph or any other brand actually, so I'll have to get handlebar risers custom made, which will be dreadfully expensive. The reality of this is that regardless of the undoubted urgency, I don't know when I'll be able to do it. Next is suspension. This is another key comfort requirement which would doubtlessly help with the whole bum-ache situation. The suspension video explains all the details and mentions that I spoke to David Hagon, the suspension wizard himself, and made the point that it really doesn't matter how good or expensive your springs are, if the suspension doesn't have enough room to bounce up and down, the ride will be uncomfortable. An interesting comparison is Mike's newly purchased 2019 Moto Guzzi V85 TT. I don't like adventure bikes like this usually, but this Guzzi is great. I like that it's a V-twin. I like how it rocks a little side to side on tickover, and the aftermarket exhaust sounds great. I sat on it and just compressed the front suspension and then the rear. I couldn't believe how comfortable it felt. I think I said something like, "That's gorgeous." Obviously, adventure bikes like the V85 have much longer suspension travel by design, and so they're taller bikes to sit on. But it emphasised to me how much and how urgently I need to upgrade and extend the suspension on my Speedmaster. Of course, part of the Speedmaster's cruiser appeal is the low seat height. It looks cool. But a low seat height can only be accomplished by having short suspension, or no suspension at all like a hardtail frame. However, as I mentioned, comfort is king for me, so I'm quite prepared to lose the cool for a more comfortable ride. On my Speedmaster, it's a bit more complicated to lengthen the front suspension because it'll need longer fork tubes, which will doubtlessly add to the expense, but it is essential for me. The last of the urgent upgrades is an engine retune. I believe modern young riders call this an ECU remap, but either way, the stock tune is horrible. In my tuning video, I explain why the engine heat and the low rev running are so bad, and my understanding is the manufacturers do this deliberately to help with modern exhaust emissions regulations. On many bikes these days, the ECU can be tweaked readily and often very cheaply. The reason I haven't done this is because it'll end the extended warranty, and given all the trouble that I've had, that's something I'm very keen to avoid. In an ideal world, I'd really like to get some of these upgrades done this year if at all possible, especially the belt drive conversion. Even though my mechanical ineptitude is boundless, I reckon that if the rear wheel is being removed for the belt drive conversion, it'll be a good time to change the rear suspension too. So that's the hope. I took the bike to Riders in Bridgewater and was quoted 6 hours, about £700, to fit the conversion as a worst case scenario, he said. Interestingly and frustratingly, Barry, the service guy, said that there'd been so many dealerships closing down he couldn't fit me in until October or November, and I asked him in May. I also asked Charlie here at Bridge, who put me on to Sean, the after-sales manager. Sean said they couldn't do the job because the frame needed to be cut. I assume this would impact the guarantee as well, but I don't know. I'm convinced that a belt drive conversion would also make a great video. I've seen lots of people write in forums and here on YouTube that they have the conversion on various Bonneville types and that they're very pleased with it. However, I've still not found a good video. I'd like to be able to do it, and maybe, just maybe, Riders would let me into the workshop with my camera for a little while. Maybe. Well, good morning boys and girls. This is my bike the day after the service, so it's in as fine a fettle as it's going to be. I'm going to try the horn. I've got my hearing aid in, so this should be a Master Blaster. Fantastic. I love that. So much better. So that is said horn. I thought they'd put it on the front here so it would face forward, but they put it on facing backwards. Well, as I say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's loud. That's what matters. And one reviewer on Amazon said you've got to have it facing downwards, have the bell down, otherwise it fills with water and that ruins it. But anyway, I'm pleased with that. Since this is a 30,000 mile review and I'm reporting on how the bike's fared over the last 3 years, note the blue in on the exhaust there, and that was because it was burning oil on, I think it was this cylinder, and it started blue in straight away really as soon as I got the bike, but it obviously got worse and worse. But once they repaired it, done the top end rebuild, the blue in didn't progress, so I suppose that's something to be grateful for, but it doesn't look very nice, does it really? But anyway, it doesn't affect anything, so I can run with it. What does annoy me is corrosion. Flipping corrosion, look at that, that's just rubbish. The bolt's oxidised, the crash bar's rusting, it's just hopeless, and that's just one aspect. Now this is the exhaust on the right side to compare with the blue in on the left, and you can see it's much less. In fact, it's very tiny. There's a tiny piece here, but otherwise it's okay, and that's because of that top end rebuild it needed. Flipping Dealer X, what can I say? Perhaps if I get my hanky on it. Ah, that's good, isn't it? You can see there, this is, I think this is where the rear grab rail goes. And under the paint, this is under the paint, there's no nothing I can do. And there's the Triumph stopper there, and you can see it's starting to rust under the paint. Absolutely, that annoys me. It shouldn't happen, especially in 3 years, and it just shouldn't happen. It's just very poor. And on the other side, exactly the same, crazing as the rust spreads under the paint. And that's nothing I've done, nothing I could have done different. That's just the finish. And as I'm sure I've said before, I had a Harley Sportster, and that did exactly the same, in exactly the same place on the rear mudguard. Just, it drives me nuts. I did a corrosion video, so watch that. I won't go on about it again, but there it is anyway. More evidence of corrosion, which is, to me, unacceptable in 30,000 miles or 3 years. This is the mudguard mount on the front right fork, and here you can see the powder coating is all chipped away and failed. Now, this mudguard doesn't get any action. In fact, I don't think it's ever been taken off. Why would it in 3 years and 30,000 miles? It doesn't need to. Even if you change the tyre, you don't need to take the mudguard off. And yet, the powder coating's failed. Again, I had a Harley Sportster, and the factory powder coating, it failed on that too, all around the engine. It was dreadful. I've had powder coating done on the casing, and aftermarket powder coating is much better. But this is factory. It shouldn't go manky like this, and the nut inside, it shouldn't fail like this. It's a disgrace. I don't know why. Well, I don't know why more riders don't make a fuss about it, because it's to me it's unacceptable. Manufacturers should do better, and it's not just Triumph, as I say, it's all manufacturers, and it's even going on the other side too. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's not that it's had any particular abuse or whatever. This is the left side, it's just the same. I'm tucked in behind the right fork, and you can see the powder coating's gone there. That's not going to get stone chips there, not really. And yet it's gone, and if I can get through to the other side, that's even worse by the look of it. That is just lousy finish, lousy quality finish. And here we are at the back end, just above the number plate. This is the very end of the rear mudguard, and you can see just at the ends it's bubbling up with rust. And again, my Harley Sportster went exactly the same way, exactly the same spot. So it's not Triumph, it's manufacturers, it's just lousy quality. Should be much better than that as far as I'm concerned. The chrome's gone. This is the right side pannier holder. Chrome's gone there. It's not a particularly exposed place to, well, I suppose by the back wheel. Nevertheless, it should be better. It should be better. So I said the Scott oiler makes a mess, and this is the sort of mess it makes. It's horrible. Now, to be fair, this mess is not the Scott oiler. This mess is because the service includes a chain lube, which is fair enough for whatever it was, 300 quid. Should do. But look at the flaming mess. And bearing in mind, this is 50-60 miles since I came back from the Exeter. That's all, and you can imagine how bad that gets. It is horrendous. And as I say, this actually isn't the Scott oiler, but this is what happens. And over the winter, when you've got to have maximum lubrication or else the chain and sprockets rust out, literally, that gets even worse. And that That is horrible, and that was clean before it went to the dealers yesterday to get the service and everything done. But that isn't the Scott oiler, but that is what the Scott oiler does. I've got the Scott oiler turned right down because it's summer. This was the invoice for the warranty work from Bridge Motorcycles, and I assume it's what they would have forwarded to Triumph. It's for a good deal less than I thought it would be, but that's partly because it's a commercial invoice, so no VAT is added. There are two prices for each job: right switchgear, left switchgear, and heated grip. I'm guessing the first is a labour charge, as the second one has the part number with it. So the right hand switchgear costs £36.72 to fit, and £67.92 for the switch cube itself. The clutch controls assembly cost £137.38 plus fitting, and the heated grip only costs £74.86, which is much less than I thought. This is because Triumph specified that only the right hand grip was to be replaced, where I thought they were going to do both sides. It doesn't much matter as long as the heated grips work properly. So the final bill for the warranty was £402. For each 3 warranty item, there's the word report, with asterisks no less. I did ask about this because, as I said, I'd like to know exactly what's been going wrong with the bike. But there's nothing to be had. I was told that Triumph don't offer reports on warranty repairs, and Bridge, presumably all dealers, don't write one. I assume, therefore, that Triumph authorization is all done over the phone, which seems strange in these modern times, maybe even unlikely. Either way, there are no reports to be had, online or otherwise, at least not by me, the customer. If you were to judge my Triumph experience by just these 3 evaluation videos, you'd be excused for thinking that the Speedmaster is a bad bike, a Friday afternoon bike, as one YouTuber put it, or even that Speedmasters, or Bonnevilles, or even Triumphs are awful. Well, that would be an understandable mistake given all the trouble I've had, but I still love the bike. All the reasons I bought it new in 2022 are still valid, and I've no intention of parting with it. I still love riding it. My aim is to turn it into the perfect summer tourer for me, and if I can do that, the bike will indeed be perfect for me. I just love it. All this begs the question, if I want to do these upgrades so much, why don't I just go ahead and get them done? Well, first there are the financial constraints which must be taken as read. But as I've mentioned in other videos, my wife Anna's health has been pretty ropey for the last 16 or 17 years, and I've effectively been her carer. This means, then as now, Anna's care is always going to be my top priority, so making things like videos will have to be secondary. Today, Anna's care is even more important because she now has terminal breast cancer. For now, all my energies go into looking after Anna, obviously, but also into managing the huge burden of grief. Sometimes, the tiniest things can knock me sideways. Anna used to be a teacher. She always taught children with the aim of helping them develop intelligence, rather than how to pass a test as is done today. So, for instance, she might teach them basic map reading or orienteering. For this she had a compass which she used for decades. The other day she gave me the compass as a keepsake, explaining that it was so that I could always find my way home. Immediately my heart broke yet again, and I was crying my eyes out. It feels like that one little compass perfectly illustrates my feelings. For me, Anna is home. Wherever Anna is, that's home to me. Now, I feel like a little boy, lost in the deep, dark woods, all alone. I feel cold and lonely, and I know that there's no compass in the world that can help me find my way back home, and in reality, I'm going to be lost in the woods for the rest of my life. One person who's really helping me through this awful time is Mike. Interestingly, he never watches my videos, so I can say anything I want to about him. He's ugly as a horse's backside, but I can live with his profound ugliness because he's been the absolute best baby brother anyone could want. He's been my best friend, a constant supporter, and someone who's been willing to listen to all my woes. His support means so very much to me. So although he may never actually watch this video, I just wanted to say, thank you, Mike. I'd also like to thank Skip and Spike. They've both assured me of their prayers from across the pond for both of us. Thank you, Spike. Thank you, Skip. Your prayers mean a lot to us, especially to Anna. Thank you again. And thank you all for watching. Ride safe, boys and girls. Cheerio.